So I've been collecting my thoughts to give property management companies some tips on dealing with vendors and getting the best and most out of your vendors. So of course, most of this comes from the electrical perspective, but it applies to the other trades and vendors that you have: HVAC, plumbing, roofing, the carpet. And the reason why I'm using this format is so that the whole thing doesn't become a run-on sentence and that each tip is just short and to the point. So keep in mind that most of these do not come from a selfish perspective as far as like making work for electrical. This kind of stuff can be done by your handyman or anyone. So all the tips we're going to talk about here in this video come from the perspective of serving your customer or tenant first. That's the homeowner or the tenant living there. And so the first one is, whenever you have an empty unit or you're in between tenants, is to replace all the light bulbs in the entire unit. The second tip is to get your transition team a multimeter if you don't have an electrician, and have them test all circuit breakers and outlets and switches. The third thing I would recommend is to get an electrician to go through the entire unit and check all fixtures and devices. The fourth thing I would recommend is, when your electrician is on a service call, have them give you recommendations for future repair or service. The fifth thing I would recommend is to never have a handyman do electrical work unless you know that they know basic electrical. The sixth thing I would recommend is to teach or at least expect basic customer service skills from your vendors. The reason I say this is a lot of skilled tradesmen tend to be a little rough around the edges as far as courtesy and manners and cleanliness. The seventh thing I would recommend is to use technology and social media to your and their advantage. I no longer touch paperwork, but I've worked for companies that the paperwork was more time consuming than the actual work itself. An honest vendor will give you more than you expect. Look for vendors that give you more, even if they're busy. It'll pay off in the long run. Here's the reason why only your best vendors will have you and your customers' best financial interests in mind. It's because they're concerned about professionalism and craftsmanship in their trade. Here's how to spot an honest vendor. He'll tell you when he doesn't know something or when he can't do something. Also, be flexible with your good vendors. If they are flexible with you, you should be flexible with them. Remember that your best vendors are going to want to help you, but they may be. And tip number 10, don't look at what may be a high short-term cost of a specialist. Instead, go back and examine the long-term costs of repeatedly using non-specialists for service calls. And so that's it. 10 tips to help property management companies with vendors. Hope that helps. And here's one bonus tip. Remember, corrective maintenance is always more expensive than preventive maintenance. And also remember, your best vendors are always going to want the best for you, your management company, your owners, and your tenants. So thank you for watching, and feel free to contact me if you have any questions about vendors, electrical work, or troubleshooting in the field.